You are listening to the Group Therapy Podcast presented by HeroOptic.com, your destination for all things shooting, hunting, and outdoors.
Time for group therapy, boys.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Group Therapy. Today we have Barton in the studio. He's with ZEISS, and rather than me try to explain who he is and what he does, we're just going to jump right into today's episode. It should be a short one. We're going to cover some really cool stuff, though. So if you would, Barton, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Name's Barton Dobbs. I'm head of sales for North America for the Hunt, Shoot, and Nature division at ZEISS. I've been here about 14 years. I'm kind of a unicorn in the industry to last this long at a company. Although, Danny, you've been in Euro for a while.
Almost
pretty
that
close,
long.
yeah. So we're both unicorns. Been here a long time. Enjoyed to see the development of the company over 14 years. I started off kind of doing training, merchandising, and I've kind of just worked my way into different roles. It's been fun to watch what dealers like Euro and those types of folks have done in the industry. And we're here to talk about the S3 and kind of the evolution of ZEISS from kind of a hunting-only company into the competitive shooting market. So we're excited.
Well, ZEISS does a little bit of everything, right? Can you kind of go into broader overview down to where we are here?
For sure. So globally, the company is based in Oberkochen, Germany. So it's in the southern part of Germany. There's about 33,000 employees overall, and it's 5 or 6 major divisions. One of the cool things about ZEISS is, aside from being a 175-year-old company, it's the oldest optics company still running, is that there's 5 or 6 of those divisions, and most of them are B2B, so most of them are big business. It's selling $1 million measuring equipment. It's selling $500,000 microscopes to, and these are highly precise machines. And the cool thing about that is that all of that technology is brought together and we share it among the divisions. So if there's some kind of uber critical lens development or new coating technology in one of these other divisions, we can share it and put it into a rifle scope or a binocular. So ZEISS has always been known as an optical leader, and that's kind of where we hang our hat, is that there's no company, I don't think, out there that has the number of resources and scientists and engineers to make this just a tad bit brighter or make a binocular just a little bit better color representation or things like that. So that's kind of the fun thing about it, is to watch the evolution of our optical sort of expertise.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique.
Unique
it's connection there.
Yeah, for sure. It's just one of the reasons I still wave the blue flag. I love this company is that every product we make, the optical piece is always going to be a box that's ticked. So we'll get into what I think these scopes, the new boxes that they tick, and some of the new things that we've done here. But I think the optics is always what we start with, is build the best optical product possible and then add the features from there, and hopefully you have a winner. Explain
the U.S. division of ZEISS a little bit so everybody understands.
Sure. So our division is we call it Hunt Nature. So Hunt Shoot is one sort of piece of the puzzle, and then the nature side is a piece of the puzzle. Rifle scopes, rangefinders, things like that for hunting and shooting is kind of collected in one group, and then we have a nature and birding side. Both of them are very active in the market, and we've grown considerably over the past 4 or 5 years. And I think the way we've done that is that the product mechanically and optically is typically always there. It's 4 or 5 years ago we kind of stepped back and said, okay, everyone always says, oh, your glass is great, it's great. But some of them would say, but I need a first focal point scope. But I shoot competitively, and I can't use your hunting scope for this. So we tried to listen to consumers finally, instead of just cramming stuff down their throat and saying,
listen to the butts.
Yeah, listen to the butts. And this whole realm of products right here, the S5 and the S3, are both results of that. Is just stopping. What is the American consumer, whether they're birding, shooting, hunting, whatever they're doing, what do they want? What are the features they demand? And some of the things our competitors listened to earlier than we did. So we admit that, but we've caught up, and I think we're doing some really great things here. And again, you got to listen to who you're selling this stuff to. It's not just about a light transmission spec or some other something on a catalog. So
and that's something I've noticed being in the industry a while. I would say before the S5, you guys pretty much took what Germany developed and sold it in the U.S.
Yep, pretty much.
This was really the first U.S. influence, was the S5, would you say?
Yeah, I would say the V4, our V4 hunting scope, was probably the first scope that we had a lot of influence in the development of, and V4 and V6 on the hunting. But to your point, the S5 was really the first product design made for the U.S. shooter and hunter. So we had from the very beginning a lot of influence and a lot of sort of say in what the S5 was going to be. So, and then the S3 kind of followed after that. So yeah, that's a big change, because my first 8 or 10 years here, for whatever reason, we just didn't have the say, or the whatever it is, we just kind of misaligned sometimes, and we would just take whatever came to us and try to sell it. But if it's misaligned to the U.S. market, it's not going to be super successful. So
too many butts in there still.
Absolutely. So
now that we're at the more U.S. driven scope designs, you've got the S5s and the S3s. Can you kind of contrast them a little bit?
Sure. So our first entry into the competitive shooting market was with the LRP S5. So LRP is long range precision series 5. So the LRP S5, there's a 5 to 25 56, 3 to 18 by 50. What we wanted to do with that is start at our super premium offering. So instead of starting at the low end or mid range, we go to the top, build the best optical and mechanical scope we possibly could. It's got the kitchen sink of our technology. It's got fluoride glass. It's got HT glass. It's got a ton of elevation adjustment, daylight visible reticle, all those features that a competitive shooter would want. And we made some really good waves with that. And I think people said, they kind of stopped and said, oh, okay, ZEISS is here to play maybe. What's really cool is a year later we bring up the S3, and everyone said, okay, ZEISS is serious about this. It's not just let's launch a few scopes and cross our fingers for 5 years and see what happens. We've got multiple series now, so I think people, whether it's a dealer, consumer, competitor, they see ZEISS is here to play. We're not just trying to dip our toe in the water, which I think we've done in the past and other companies have done as well. But again, the S5 would be our super premium offering in that $3,700 to $3,900 retail range. It goes up against some heavy hitters in that range, but I think it holds its own for sure. It's a great product. The S3, again, we came out with it in October of last year, so it's not quite a year old. It's still at its kind of infancy phases, but this one I think has changed the game for us because of the amount of features and performance we've packed into this little body at a sub $2,500 retail price. It's pretty crazy, and we know that's kind of where the volume is, and that's why we wanted to make sure we back up the big boy with one that's more volume, and it's still got a lot of features. So the S3 has been great for us. And
both lines, I noticed they've got more travel than anything out there, I believe, that I'm aware of.
Yep. Yeah, the S5, I think it tops out about 130, but the 4 to 25 by 50 in the S3 tops out at 160 minutes or 46.5 mils. So it's literally just go and go. And what we've noticed is it's one thing to put it to put a spec on a sheet, but what's cool about the growth in the rimfire market is competitive rimfire. You can take this 4 to 25 and you can get a rimfire cartridge to 600 yards. Like, you do things that you can't do with other products. So it's just fun to kind of test the limits of this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty special, especially in the rimfire realm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or any of the ELR guys that are trying to stretch out to 3K. I mean, I always prefer to try and mechanically arrive at the location instead of holding over or using the prism deals.
For sure.
But yeah, they're pretty special. And I like the form factor of this little guy as well. I mean, there's not a whole lot more. Now, guys generally will go for power, so the 6 to 36.
Bigger is better sometimes.
Yep. But which I can't argue. That's the one that I have been shooting more. But the form factor on that 4 to 25 with what it, length and weight and overall profile, and then you work in the pricing. I mean, it's pretty hard to beat that. And the reticle actually has worked out very well as well. It's very agreeable to me, and I get kind of whiny on my reticles, so I was very happy to see that be a win as well.
Like you and every other shooter, and one of the interesting things we did is we tried to really think through this, and that sounds obvious, like you think through a product development, but we try to really step back and say, what do we need to do to take care of 80 to 90% of the market, not capture every reticle for every single, because every time you go to a show or something like that, you get people that come up and go, well, you should have done this on the second. Like, there's always going to be people that are not going to like something, but we feel like we only have 2 reticles. We did that by design, is that there's a lot of brands that do really well with having an entire platform of dozens of reticles. Great, that's awesome, but we figured let's make an MOA reticle that works and it's really well done, and let's do a mill reticle that works and is really well done, and take care of the market, most of what people would want. And we've gotten great feedback, and that both of those reticles, MOA for the folks that like the MOA, maybe some hunters that are transitioning into competitive shooting, maybe like a more MOA more. Mills being kind of the competitive shooting type of reticle for sure, but most people are really happy with what we've done because I don't think we overcomplicated the reticles. There's enough information in there and there's enough illumination to take care of business, but there's not an overwhelming amount of things like both the reticles are only center illuminated, so it's not this massive amount of illumination that's going to blind you, or just you have to sit and waste time tweaking the adjustments. Yeah. So it's just we try to think through this and really kind of take each step by step and figure out what's going to work best. So
the S3 specifically that I've been using here for a little bit, and the Rimfire trainer scenario, it's can't ask any more from it, honestly.
Yeah, and what's cool about the 4-25 as well, as we're kind of talking about this guy, is there's still enough room, enough mounting surface as well. Like, optics is always you give and take with some things. You can make scopes as compact as you want, but then you've got so little room to mount here that you can kind of run into trouble here. But it's got a good balance of being really it's like 13 inches. It's short, but you've got plenty of space here, so you're not going to run into issues with that as well. So
that's one of the things that I see a lot of with the newer scope and some of the higher end scopes too is the shorter the scope goes, the turrets and everything stay the same, the bell housing and all that. So you only can mount it a certain specific way. Where I know with a lot of the ZEISS scopes, you really get a lot of travel between the turret.
And it's still short enough to be as short as about anything in the category.
Right.
But you've got freedom to mount and not too short that it's compromising optically.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's always a balance. As long as I've been here, it's always like, why don't you just do this? Why don't you do a 12x scope and make it this long? I mean, you can do anything, but you're going to give up something. And a lot of times the things you give up make people walk away because it's like you're giving up too much of something.
Well, one of the things that's aggravating is when you're mounting a scope and you kind of limit it as to where the rings will go on it, the housing. I mean, you get say you're putting your rail on there, you're putting your mount. Say it's a separate mount system than the rings. The rings don't actually mount to the. You follow me. But I've had times before I've mounted things, put it up to my eye, the eye box is just way off, and I have to change the whole mount, not just the scope. Like with the scope, you can kind of move it where you want to, you know what I mean? That's definitely a really cool feature.
Yeah, for sure. You really got to try to think through this stuff and think what the shooter would want, not just put it all together and, we got all the features and tick all the boxes. Here it is. You got to think about it and get behind it and test it, and really put a lot of testing and evaluation into it. So, we've tried to do the best we can with this one. I think we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it for sure.
I would predict generally that the mill scopes would be the winner in both of these cases. Are you finding what are you kind of seeing on the spread of mill versus MOA?
Interesting you said that. When we launched in October 22, there was about a 50-50 split. Literally, it's almost like we have 4 SKUs, 4-25 MOA mill, 6-36 MOA mill. It was literally 25, 25, 25, 25. It started off like everyone's like, okay, this is easy for me to forecast, perfect. And then we've started to see this shift toward the 6-36 mil is kind of starting to take over because, again, it's bigger is better, and you use it as well. But the mills are starting to shift into more of a more prominence. The MOA still holds its own for sure, but we are seeing that kind of it's shifting towards the mill scopes here. So it's just competitive shooting. And one of the cool things too is that I was thinking about it. It's one thing to create a cool scope, launch it, and start selling it, and high five for orders and all that stuff, and it's great. But where you really feel good about it is when you start seeing the scope on the line. We're putting shooting teams together and kind of getting ZEISS into the shooting market. We're starting to see S3s on the line, see more S5s, whereas 18 months ago nobody was shooting a ZEISS because we didn't have it. We had second focal plane hunting stuff. So when you start to see 3, 4, 5, 10 of these on the line, when you had 0 last year, that's confirmation that you're doing something right. So it's not perfect, but man, we're on the right track for sure.
Something I've noticed, I think it hits a sweet spot on the budget for sure. A lot of guys that are doing these comps and running gun, PRS, NRL, whatever, they don't want to take a $5,000 scope out and scratch it up on a barricade. So they
a
feel a little better spending $25,000.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, both of these are under the $2,500 production class limit too. So we really tried to figure that out. And again, the 4 to 25 runs at $2,300 retail, and the 6 to 36 is $25,000. So bang for the buck, man. It's real tough to beat.
And I think the throw lever design worked out very well too. You got a couple positions and put a nice size throw lever. It's not too big, not too small. Got one on this giveaway gun that we're giving away at our grand opening here.
You have to say that again because it's opening celebration.
Oh, sorry, it's not grand opening.
No, we've been in business since 1999, so.
So
just the
the
showroom.
new showroom, celebration, shindig.
all that stuff.
Yeah, so about almost an inch long throw lever probably, and you got 3 spots to put it. That's been very handy.
Yeah, and I like it too. You've got it set in the right place with the magnification indicator. So you put it in the middle, and you've got the throw lever, but you also know exactly where your magnification indicator is. So just, again, little things like that, I think I really like to use.
So when it's at 12 o'clock, you're in the center of the mag range.
Right.
Very cool.
Right.
Just to touch also on that magnification ring, I noticed with ZEISS scopes compared to some others, they're all different. The ZEISS ones have been consistently smooth, easy to manipulate.
Some are very tight, and you need a throw lever. This one is tight but smooth.
Yeah, you guys do a great job on those.
So the 6 to 36 is 12 o'clock. Same deal. Very cool.
Yep.
I didn't realize that.
Just usability, little things. Try to think of like what does a shooter want. And another of the features, external locking windage turret over here. Pull it out, make your adjustments, push it back to lock it, and the starting point, is actually raised a bit, so you don't have to take your eye off it. You can really just
point of view.
Yeah,
Yep.
shooter's point of view. So it's really thinking about who's behind this scope, who needs what, and
Same
where.
with the parallax.
Yep. So again, usability is kind of, it's not talked about a lot. It's kind of assumed that everything's going to be perfectly usable, but a lot of things are not. A lot of things
are all checked off on this one for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like the windage limited deal.
Windage limiter is a big deal too.
Fun.
It's not talked about a lot either, even for us.
Yep.
But man, you can over rotate your windage and be completely off. But it's nice to limit that and know, oh, I'm at the end. I got to pull back and stop.
Sometimes even when you have a zero stop, you can get a rev off.
Yeah,
we were at the range, and my 10-year-old. We were shooting with someone very special, and had the 22 out there trying to make hits at 300 after he was, and he's nowhere in the neighborhood. And I went up, like, oh, it looks like it's on the right setting. It was 6 mils, I think. And I kept going down, and it kept going under zero. I'm like, you forgot to go down to your zero stop. Things you learn.
Yeah, for sure. Getting out there and using it for sure. But
the zero stop was set. He just forgot to check it before he dialed up to 300. When you're dialing rimfires, it can accelerate fast.
Absolutely. That rimfire market's fun. It's in kind of funky economic times, rimfire seems to do this because it's cheap to shoot. You're not shooting $4 and $5 rounds at centerfire, and you can go out there and play all day and teach kids. And so we've seen a lot of growth there. It's been fun to watch the rimfire thing kind of take off for sure.
Yeah, you don't have to cringe every time it goes off. When
seriously,
he's over there pounding through the rounds.
That's right.
It's definitely the best way to get started when you're learning how to do the more detailed reticles. I mean, 22.
Yep.
Can't beat it.
You get 1,000 rounds for the.
Yep. Then you get really comfortable. Then you can move up your caliber.
Absolutely, it's a great way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. So there's other things to talk about. Can we talk a little bit about just like the elevation travel we talked about a little bit? The optics, I mean, again, I talked about optics, kind of the basis of ZEISS overall, but to go back a little bit, is I think I mentioned is that the one word I heard when we started the S5 and the S3 is finally. That was the word I heard over and over and over again, because I've been here 14 years, and the first 13 it was great glass, but where's your this? Where's your that? Where's your focal point? So finally was the word. So it was showed that there's a market and there's a need for it, for another European premium manufacturer to bring it here. But so optics, yeah, we've done everything we can with the S3 and the S5 as far as advanced ED glass and our T-Star transmission coatings. So like light transmission and that type of optical performance is something we always we push really hard at ZEISS. And I think, features aside, as far as like just turrets and reticles and the things people really love, still got to have a good optical platform. There's a ton of products out there that have a lot of features, but man, the optics just don't necessarily stack up. So I feel like that's something we can always kind of rest on, or not rest on, but really point to, is that look through the scopes side by side, and that's the best way to kind of look at a ZEISS.
And the interesting thing about that is you really don't know what you're missing until you know what you're missing.
Mm-hmm.
So and through my years of shooting through just about everything, I can get on something and be like, this just doesn't look right. Get on this one, and if I get on the scope and just shoot it and don't ever think about the glass, I know when I don't think about it, it's right.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's good.
That's kind of how this 6-36 went when I started shooting it.
We like to hear that. It's good. To your point, yeah, you don't want to put any sort of doubt in the shooter or hunter's mind of like, is this as good as I could get? Because then you've got this question mark and then, all that kind of second guessing. So yeah, we try to do the best optical package we can for sure. So how do you like the reticle? How do you like the mill reticle that you?
I think it's all it needs to be and nothing more. I have no complaints.
Good.
Which is rare.
I don't say that doesn't sound like you.
Yeah,
Is this
I know.
You tired today or what?
I know. No,
little off.
when I can't complain about something, I'm very happy.
I like that. That's a good
And
one.
you know,
this is probably the quietest that he's actually been a while. In a while on video for sure.
Barton knows firsthand. I'll tell him about it if I don't like it.
I've heard it a few times over the past 10, 12 years for sure. So
But, yep, and that little half mil dot, I actually used that when we were I had my 10-year-old son to an NRL match. Just first time he's had to shoot off a barricade because he's been fairly spoiled, as you can imagine. Either prone or tripod shooting is what we do a lot of because it's just so easy for young shooters or
Kiddos.
inexperienced shooters to manage heavy guns on tripods when they're good tripods.
Yeah.
We actually had to use that little half mil dot on some of because the one stage was 95, 65, 35, and you had to go. It was 12 round drill, and then at 35 it was a KYL, so it was 1 inch, 3/4, half, and quarter.
Okay.
So you start in the middle, far back to the 1 inch, middle, far back to 3/4, middle, far back to half, middle, far back to quarter.
Man.
And he did everything right. But on one of those we used that little half mil dot on several of the stages actually. So even with those 0.2s in there, having that little half mil made it easier for me to communicate that to him as
Awesome.
well. And he had no problem running it. I like it just the way it is.
He's 10, you said? Oh, that's a 10-year-old can use that. That's saying something. 'Cause again, you can complicate
He
this
never
thing.
held the wrong spot.
Really
Yep. Through
Awesome.
through his first NRL match.
easy to use. Love it.
He didn't hit every target, but he was at least holding it the right place.
That's all you can ask for.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, another thing we did with the reticles, as we talk more about it, the two reticles are called the ZF MRI, which is the mill, and then the ZF MOAI. So, again, we tried to pinch down the illumination piece, so it's not illuminating the whole reticle.
Yeah, too many lumens coming out there, and you can't see by it. That drives me crazy.
For sure. Create some space in the center of the reticle for the aiming, like this half mil dots and things like that. Additionally, it's a daylight visible reticle, which is something I don't think a lot of people talk about. And so it is bright, and think about it in competitive shooting situations. It's usually in the day. It's usually bright. And if you're shooting and there's brush in the back or something, a black reticle can get lost sometimes. So this thing will illuminate, and you can see it in the middle of the day. We've used this. It's very visible, and again, it goes back to usability. Can you use this thing? Can you see the reticle? And if you have illumination, you want to see it. You don't want to waste a feature of a scope by having it too dim or whatever. So
yeah, you guys did well on the illumination. I've got one guy, he'll know who he is, who harasses me on daylight illumination and high-powered scopes. I'm like, but why? But he has a certain scenario. He's shooting into the sun at his range. When he gets time to do it in the evening, guess where the sun is?
6 p.m. or 7 p.m. The sun's
right there,
for sure.
And so he actually uses that daylight illumination, and he is a big fan of these scopes as well.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting. So another thing not to overlook is again trying to think about usability and users. There's 5 different intensity settings for red in the reticle and 5 in green as well. So. Again, you go to shows or talk to consumers on the phone. I'm sure you've heard it. It's like, can't see red very well. My eyes don't work with red. So we gave them a green option as well. So it's
Green
kind of
definitely looks nicer.
Yeah, it's
less harsh.
kind of crisp and less harsh, and it doesn't kind of give you that. Oh crap, that's really bright. So 5 settings on each of those as well. So again, trying to think of users and who else might need to use this thing. So
and you've got guys that are actually colorblind, and I mean, if you don't have green in there, they probably can't use it.
Right. So we've gotten good feedback on that as well. Just giving people more options for sure.
So touching on usability, I'll say I'm maybe 20 feet from you guys, the table there. I don't know if there's another scope where I can't see the numbers exactly, but I can see them a lot better than most turrets.
Yep,
So really great job on those, being nice and simple to read from.
And a lot of older shooters, when the vision starts to go, I know I talk about that not every day, but that is very real.
Yep.
Is having the numbers big enough to read quickly, especially then getting into a comp scenario as well. If you're dialing, having them bigger and more readable is good as well.
Yeah, for sure. We put a lot of effort into that. You'd be surprised how much effort it takes to get designed to make things whiter and brighter. And what shade of white do you want? There's so much detail that goes into that. Maybe it's just ZEISS, but we said, to your point, exactly what you said, is we got to make this thing visible too. If you put it as a kind of a lighter shade or something, if the sun's going down or you're in the evening, people are under time constraints in a comp situation. You don't want to have to sit and go, is that 12 or 13? Crap.
Yep,
You've wasted 3 seconds doing that. That throws your whole rhythm off too.
Yeah, it's hard for those hash marks to blend together like they do on some scopes.
And what's funny, you said that. I never gave it a thought because I didn't have to think about it.
Right.
It just worked.
Wow. It's again, I haven't heard Bainey be this.
He seems pretty smitten with these.
The only thing
He's either really tired or he actually likes to
So
scope
one
that.
complaint. I'll give you my one complaint, which you already know. So I prefer my zero stops to go a little under.
Good.
But you can work around it, and you can set it up that way. So just something I discovered early with the turret that translates. So when you are setting the zero stop, which is pretty simple, take the turret off, loosen the screws, take it off, loosen the zero stop disc, drop it, spin it till the pins hit. That's your zero stop.
Yep.
I like it to go a little under. So what I have to do, bring it back a 1/4 inch or so if I want about a 1/2 mil of under, and then I lift it just a touch so that it doesn't bind when it's translating down. So if someone wants a little under click on their zero stop, it's easy enough to do. It's an extra 5 seconds and
That's totally
and then
fair.
You're good. So I've got about a 1/2 mil under, just in case you find out you're off. There's whatever you're traveling with it. I like a little under so you can compensate if needed.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair for sure. It's but at least you can recover from that. Like
It's very workable.
Not a
just
hard
something
stop.
to keep in mind. Yep.
Absolutely. No, that's good feedback for sure. So, this turret on the S3 is very similar to the turret, the ballistic stop, and we call it a ballistic stop, in our V6 and V4. So again, like you said, you just unscrew a couple screws, take the cap off, unscrew the caps on the shoulder in there. Then you got the metal on metal, which again is another thing. There's no plastic or anything in there. It's metal on metal, so you can tell when you're making a click. Very tactile clicks.
Yeah, the click fail on these is great.
So it's
Not
all
too, Yeah, there's no, again, it's not, when you click it, I don't think about it.
Yep.
So it's not too mushy,
you
not
don't,
too
you don't
hard.
have to is that clicking? You don't
Bring that up to your microphone. Let people hear it.
Oh,
That's some ASMR goodness right there.
Can you hear it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
it's not just visual; it's audio
Yeah.
here. We got all
It's
the
a good click.
yeah. So again, a bunch of little things like that, but I think that you put the whole thing together. I think it was well thought out on that piece of the puzzle. So yeah.
You guys really, you could tell with the product that you guys paid attention to what people
So
really
many
want.
little features that
It's all the little things that were just, you could tell they were finely tuned.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah, it's again.
this 12. I'm blown away by this. If you put the lever in the middle and it's 12 o'clock dead center, you're in the center of the power range. I love that.
Yep. Little
Makes
things.
sense.
Little things. But it just shows you too how many little things go into a rifle scope. I mean, it's binoculars, great. They're pretty simple, man. Competitive shooting rifle scope, there are 1,000 details, and if you can get the majority of them down, that's great, because shooters are so picky. They'll find the one thing like, what about this? And they'll just roast you for it. But if you get enough of them going, and maybe you can kind of make
Yeah, you
make
guys hit it
people
out of the
happy.
park on this one for sure.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone complain. I've
good.
heard a lot of complaints on scope. Never heard anyone say anything bad about his eyes.
Well, good. Again, we're really excited about just the direction the company is headed in with this, because the hunting market is what it is. It's grown in certain areas and things, but I think the real growth in optics has been, aside from thermal and some other things, it's competitive shooting, and there's a lot of players, but there's not a lot of players that I think bring this level of optical and mechanical performance.
Right.
There's some heavy hitters. We're going up some. There's no question. It's even at $2,500, heavy hitters, and $4,000 for sure. But we feel like we've ticked a lot of the boxes, and we came to, honestly, we want people to win, not just compete. In ZEISS, we want to win, not compete. That maybe sounds cheesy, but we don't just want to be a part of the show. We want to win the show. We want to win the competitions. We want you to win competitions. Yeah. To kind of wrap up the features, I mean, we talked about a lot of different things, kind of jumped around. Like we say like five pillars of in different types of features. It's best in class elevation travel. We talked about that. Mm-hmm. Advanced optics, kind of something you expect with ZEISS. Easy to use ballistic stop. We've talked about the ballistic stop on the turret, multi-turns, all that good stuff. The reticles, make them easy. Give people enough information, but don't overwhelm them. In their daylight visible. Use them in the day when competitive shooting happens. And then the external locking windage turret and just the positioning of the indicators and the larger font sizes and things like that. So those 5 things make it usable, make it mechanically sound, and make it optically great, we think. So yeah, we're just but again, it comes back to, is anybody using this thing out there? Are they buying it and just stick it in their, like a lot of hunting scopes you buy and you may use them 3 or 4 days a year, maybe a couple of weeks a year, but if you bring a competitive scope to the market that's serious, people are going to use this thing 100 days a year or 200, whatever it is. I mean, people shoot all the time, so you have to do it right. And it's nice confirmation to see people at the range using these, because they could use XYZ brands that have been in this game for 5, 10, 12, 15 years that have a stronghold on it. But when this guy shows up or this guy shows up, it means we're doing something right. So
for sure.
We'd really like that.
Something else I just thought about that you don't know until you take it out and use it in this scenario is, again, when my son was running this just recently, he didn't have to fight to get on the scope.
Eye box.
In all the weird positions. I really hate the term eye box.
I know.
What do you prefer?
What would you use?
I don't talk about it. So,
there's no word for it.
It was easy to get on, easy for him to get on. People get so caught up on eye box.
So
the biggest part is when your face is in the right spot on the gun, you're gonna see.
Yeah, but also too, when you're under pressure and adrenaline's pumping,
right,
you want to have that instant.
Yes. Well, that comes back to mechanics though. So if your
for
mechanics
the,
are good, eye box is a non-issue.
But for people like me, the newbies,
right? Well, that's what I'm getting at is, so when my son was on this, shooting off of a ladder or a folding chair or a tire or whatever that he's never done till the night before. We did a 1-hour training session the night before. I never saw him fighting to get on, to get on and see through, to get in the eye box.
Wow.
I never saw him. So that just came to me now while you were talking in this last session.
And that's a 6-36.
Yes.
Usually a high magnification scope.
Well, he wasn't running it. I mean, we were not running it high necessarily.
Right.
But still, it's still another, we're somewhere in the bottom half of the magnification generally, but he never fought to get on it. And that has not been, again, I haven't had to think about the eye box because it has never been an issue.
Yeah, that's something I noticed too, because, as I get new rifles and platforms and everything, because I have the luxury of working here, I can just go around the showroom and kind of look at everything and see what I like. And every time I pick up ZEISS, specifically the term eye box, it always seems to fight a lot with the higher magnification scopes. But it seems like no matter what it is, if it says ZEISS on it, it's usually pretty generous, and it's not hard at all to
user-friendly eye box.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, it comes back to, can you use the thing?
Yeah.
If you don't want to use it, if there's enough little things that little barricades, little hurdles, you're not going to want to use the scope. You may own it, but you're like, I'll use something else because this one's just. And it's all about, if you're competing, it's all about seconds. A couple seconds here, a couple seconds there can make or break you.
Well, if you guys didn't know already that you're killing it with iBox, keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. Awesome. We love that. So there's all kinds of things that I bring to the table and talk about, but if little things like that, little anecdotes like that are great just to hear. So, yeah.
So you have anything going on in the future with ZEISS that there's some things I understand you might not be able to talk about, but
sure.
What's something we can look forward to in the future with you guys?
Great question. I mean, we're always looking at innovation. I will tell you that our rifle scope lineup is the best it's ever been, but it's not complete. Our competitive shooting series of scopes is not complete. So you got S5, Series 5, S3, Series 3. So you could probably figure out some other things.
There's room for an S20 someday.
There's room for an S17. But we're always looking at, again, we feel like we've had enough success here initially, but we're still such a small relative player in this market. We've got a lot to go with. I think this will help us, and both the scopes will help us, but competitive shooting will not go away. I think hunting is getting harder and harder to do and more expensive, I feel like, in a lot of places. It's just harder to get tags, and in the West, it's like they're moving things around, and you can shoot an elk this year, but not next year, and all this stuff. So as the harder hunting gets in some places, people move to competitive shooting as something they can do year round. So it's not going away. It's not a fad. It's a trend, and so we're going to keep investing in this. I think thermal is always going to be there too as well. That's another growth market for us, and we've got work to do on spotting scopes and other things too. But I would say rifle scopes is where we see most of the growth in the industry, what we've seen so far. So we're going to keep investing in this and trying to fill in gaps and do all that kind of stuff. So
it's nice. It's nice to see the more adaptable line giving shooters what they want. So that's refreshing.
This might be a little off topic, but I will make mention of it because I've been using them for over 10 years now with doing a lot of the video and audio stuff I do. My favorite, I'll just say it. You guys make the ZEISS branded lens wipes, the disposable lens wipes.
Yep.
You can't beat them. They're such a small little simple thing, and nobody really gives it much thought. But when you work with glass and lenses, it's just, those are the best ones. I get a bulk pack of those things.
Yeah, I got them too.
Yeah, they're great.
Yep.
So congrats on the wipe game as well.
Shift the conversation. Let's talk about lens. No, that's little stuff, whatever. But it's to your point, you got to clean this stuff too. And for gosh sakes, please don't. Like I see people do this. And they're like, you just hunters are out there with paper towels and stuff.
All right, I got to tell this story.
Let's hear it.
I got to tell this story, and you may have heard it or seen it, but I have watched the owner prove a point to me with steel wool a long time ago.
Okay.
Your coatings will take it.
Really?
We'll spit and steel wool. I watched it happen.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to ask him about that.
So you're saying anyone that buys a ZEISS scope, they should probably get some steel wool.
Maybe
my service guy, if he's watching this, is
Well, before I forget about it and this moment goes, I watched him prove a point to me.
Really?
Yep.
I
And
heard
that Logitech T-Star, it was I'm pretty sure it was a 3 to 12 by 56 Conquest.
Okay.
If I recall. It's probably 12 years ago, maybe more. And the coating looked just fine after.
Wow.
But
that's crazy.
But so everyone is aware, we cannot recommend.
This is not recommended.
We do not recommend
just the fact that I've seen it happen
with steel wool.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have told people that before, but not too many. So maybe a few more people will hear
That's
it
your
now.
final closing sales pitch. By the way, you're on the fence
steel wool.
about this. You can. That's crazy. That's cool.
Well, they're
But don't do
durable,
that.
so that speaks to it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Cool.
Use those lens wipes.
Yeah, use lens wipes for sure. So yeah, all good stuff, guys. We appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's give us an opportunity to talk about this stuff and get. in
Glad
front
you
of
made it
people.
by, so we could finally talk about these things.
Absolutely, we'll do it again for sure. So. Yeah, again, we're excited about it. We're excited about the direction we're headed in, and kind of the doors these open up, literally and figuratively. So yeah, we're on a good path.
Looking forward to what's coming down the pike. Justin, you got anything else for us?
No, I think you did a great job explaining that. I've learned some things. I think other people have learned some things as well. And if you haven't checked out ZEISS before, you should definitely give it some consideration. We've got our new showroom that we're doing an opening celebration for here tomorrow. This will obviously come out after that, but if you're in the area, Central Pennsylvania, come check us out. We've got a great lineup of ZEISS scopes, and you're more than welcome to get your hands on them and check them out. So thank you, Barton. Thank you, Bainey, for joining us today for this discussion. And straight shooting, I guess.
Absolutely.
I don't have a tagline or a send-off or anything, but
That's good.
yeah, thanks for watching. If you're
Bainey,
watching
thanks, man.
this.
We'll see you on the
Appreciate
next
it.
one.
Absolutely.
And, thanks for listening if you're listening on your podcast. So have a good day, guys.
Thanks, everybody.